So, this week's short story is about a pig and a pig, or an ex-pig and an actual pig. Hi, Shell.
And hello to all the other wonderful weirdos watching.
Okay, so jokingness of my intro aside, I'm actually thinking of giving up on Clive Barker. I kind of stopped reading this story on multiple lines, sentences that just made me question the author, and in not a good way. Like, there's something that got touched upon in the first story, but now it's like even worse. Like, I don't, it's making me very uncomfortable, and it is like the fact that he went there as well. And then there's the desire. So the content warning for this is like very grotesque horror, like concerning a pig who is being fed people because the pig is requesting it. And on top of that, the protagonist decides to play a favoritism to one of the lads who is an adolescent. And it went there closer to the end where he actually said the sentence of his desire in his head. Kind of. Apparently it was implied, which I didn't pick up on when he was being told off by his boss about favoritism. And I'm just like, so to set the scene, this is a prison for juveniles. This is basically for delinquent teens that really, really, really need guidance. And even the protagonist has noticed that they are in dire need of said guidance, and they are very susceptible to superstition and very backwards thinking in the religious cultish practices. So yeah, there's a cult worshipping a pig. This is something that would have been really interesting to read. However, some of the lines, because there's this one lad who's getting singled out by the pig. He's been beat up during the first day of our protagonist's day, whose name escapes me. And quite frankly, this is a time when I'm going to let it. So Lacey, this teenager, has just been beaten up in the middle of the grounds, and they go out to stop him. The guy who used to be a policeman, hence the joke ex-pig, and I'm not going to rescind that because of it's kind of baked into the story. Like, he is called the pig because that's the view of policemen in the story. And on top of that, I think he deserves the name after the desire that got inserted. I'm going to say it definitely felt inserted because I didn't read into it until it became blatant. And when I say that, I mean this boy is getting singled out for the slaughter, and the ex-policeman who is now teaching a woodshop class to these boys is kind of picking up on that. And so he's kind of like, right, okay, I'll make sure no harm comes to you. obviously that is the right thing to do. You should be looking out for people's well-being. And yeah, this is we get a few sequences of our protagonist trying to work things out. Why did Lacey try to escape? Because Hennessy is after him. Kevin Hennessy is after him, and he asks around that this is the inmate that escaped, but Lacey says he died and the ghost is haunting the place. Gets a tip by one of the students to go to the farm, which felt slightly off, but he goes, he sees there's 2 pigs not being very well looked after, and one sow who even he kind of in his own internal thinking made me think I'm going to get a Black Mirror episode, because he was very much praising this pig. Yeah, genuinely thought it was going to go in that direction. Hell, some of the people that talk about this pig, I thought it was going to go in that direction. Yeah, now this pig has just eaten, is wanting to eat Lacey. Because she is desiring something other than her slop that she's being fed. And yeah, the boys are trying to facilitate her wants, and she speaks. She even sometimes decides to walk on her hind legs. She's kind of controlling their behavior. They are worshipping her, and we find out later on that Hennessy was a suicide. Hennessy had hung himself in the sty, and that's how the pig can talk, because she has Hennessy's tongue. Using Hennessy's voice, she's able to voice her displeasure that she's not being fed the right stuff and get me Lacey. And because there's this, when you get a confrontational workplace because they just hired you to fulfill a quota, because this is a place of, I don't know, they say they're there for the troubled minds, and he's just going to come in and ruin it all, and he kind of is ruining their thing, but he's actually providing them with silent respect and structure and just common sense, I guess. And there's a really good scene in here where my thoughts are all over the place with this book. It's very distracting not to talk about the thing yet, but there's this really good sequence where Lacey has come out of the hospital and is trying to give a letter to our protagonist, who is saying, why not give it to the office? And it's just like, no, they'll burn it. They read it and burn it if we say things that we're not supposed to. Please just deliver this to my mom. And so he agrees to it, and then somebody walks in saying that there's a phone call for our protagonist, and then he's just like, right, you stay here with Lacey whilst I'm taking this phone call. And he walks past the break room. He walks past this room where everybody's gawking at the telly like mindless drones, which excellent description of the hypnotic screen. So he kind of has to go back because the person on the other end of the phone got tired and hung up. And so he went back, and then he realised there's no noise coming from the TV room because they weren't whooping at the violence. Everybody had gone from the room. So he turns it off, and then the person who was supposed to be watching Lacey is now at the door, and there's a confrontation with a knife. That whole sequence was like pretty horrifying, that there's no sound. He's in this like dark place, and there's just this hushed silence, and it was pretty good description of it. But then we get the knife sequence with somebody who I keep wanting to say is Snape, but it's Slate. Yeah, again, the slimy person, but again, an adolescent. And he basically pulls a knife on our protagonist, and for some reason, he doesn't wince by the fact that there's a knife. Like, I know the knife didn't go far into his stomach, but even if there's blood, like, dripping, and Clive Barker likes to mention groins a lot, the blood will be dripping from his navel to his groin. Surely that would have just like made him flinch a little bit, or just like feel the pain. There's got to be some kind of feeling to that. I mean, I get that he might be hardened, but even just an acknowledgement that there is a knife drawing blood in his gut would have been nice. But it's like he's not even being stabbed. But yeah. He managed to grab the knife, has a little confrontation with this lad, to the point where he grabs the guy by the throat and starts kneeing him in the groin. This protagonist, who is a fully grown ex-copper and earns the title of pig because he has just got this adolescent. Yes, he's drawn a knife on him, and yes, he just threatened his life, but now this is torturing because he is constantly kneeing him in the groin and is threatening to keep going until he gives the information up. Where is Lacey? He's still a child. He is still a child. There are lines you just don't cross. That is one of them. Stop kneeing children in the groin and get back to doing your job, please. Trouble is, kneeing the fucker in the groin was effective. So he stops and he throws the boy against the wall. And the boy does pick up the knife and starts swiping again, and he just... the first time he just aims for the protagonist's groin again, because Clive Barker really has a thing for groin. Even the pig in the story wanted to eat balls. Literally listing the order in which the pig was going to eat Lacey, it was balls was mentioned, and I was just like, why? But yeah, that was a thing. And on top of that, so he kind of does eventually get to the sty, confront everybody, even his boss is in on it, despite her being a no-nonsense person, and turns out that she and Hennessy had a thing. But it's fine because he was 18, had hair as black as... it's just as bad as the first one, where an older woman, was being aroused by a younger, still in legal age, but very young lad. It's predatory. There's like this unwritten rule of age gaps, and so far Clive Barker is doing a lot with it. And especially given the fact that we are not given Lacey's age, or at least if we are, I'm not picturing an 18-year-old. I'm picturing a 15-year-old because his letter to his mum was, they fed me to the pig. They're going to tell you that I didn't love you. They're wrong. I never did. I love you, and don't believe what they say. I'm picturing a 15-year-old writing a letter to his mama. And the protagonist decides to have a reflection on the conversation he had with his boss about his favoritism, which up to now I read as he's noticing things aren't right, and so he's trying to do the right thing. My battery died, so I'm just the descriptions in this book were quite horrific and gory in some because of how the pig is eating people and describing how she wants to eat people. And then there's the horrific ending, definitely well described. I really did enjoy the horror elements of, I could do without the nudity though, of the minor. Just, and the protagonist's description of the perfect curve of his spine. I could do without the protagonist describing said adolescent's body. That yeah. So I'm not particularly liking Clive Barker right now. I'm very conflicted to keep going. There are 2 more stories in this, and I'm going to give it till volume 2, because volume 2 is 2 short stories away, and they're very long, because volume 2 is about there, and I'm so close to it. I'm going to give it till there, and then I might decide if I'm going to continue with Clive Barker, which is annoying because I have 2 of his giant freaking novels. Yeah, this is a gross story. The horror was great. It's just Clive went too far for me, anyways. Yeah, not great. Not great. I could have done without some of the details. It's not that it was overly gory. It's just, again, it's just it's the desire of older people wanting adolescent young bodies. No, I just didn't want to read this bloody story whenever it came up, and it was just like putting it down for a bit. I think Freud would love Clive Barker, because I remember one of my A-level psychology teachers saying Freud was obsessed with sex and death, and Clive Barker is just sex and death. Because I got the impression from the first paragraph of the next short story, because I was a bit too curious, and yeah, Clive Barker Freud would love Clive Barker. That's just this week's short story, a very gross, disturbing extra detail I did not want. It makes me very scared to keep reading, because Clive Barker is unfortunately hitting on people's desire for youth in the wrong way. Like, I'd rather people do that in the context of immortality and wanting to be young forever, not anyways, that's this week's short story. Yeah, Clive Barker is hanging on by a thread at the minute, which is not what I was expecting from this short story collection. Oh well, unfortunately we can't like it all. Oh well. Bye, Shell.
And bye to all you other wonderful weirdos watching.
Anyways, ew.